The Minister, what kind of sanction, the maximum penalty that should be given to people who have been found to have been acting in a racist manner?
Life. Give them life. We don't need the racists here. We are moving. If you are racist, you are showing tendencies of wanting to take us back. We have made great strides as a nation. We took a decision. The whole world is looking to us as an example of how to overcome racism and hatred. The majority...
You've brought this event here in the Western Cape. Why?
Well, you know what, firstly, in the Western Cape, as you just mentioned, the highest incidence of racism has been reported in the Western Cape. And today is reconciliation. And we wanted to show that people in the Western Cape want to reconcile, they want to be a socially cohesive area, and also the fact that we brought it to Vredendal. It is that the president, they also want to see the president, they also want to be part of South Africa, because these far-flung places are usually always forgotten, but that will no longer be the case under the GNU.
If we look at some of the flare-ups of racism incidents, like the incident in Limpopo, a farmer killing workers and feeding them to pigs, and in schools, in universities, a white student urinating on a neighbor's whose black room, as well as incidents of children in high schools being auctioned off by their white counterparts. As government, what kind of programs, or are you making any meaningful impact in terms of dealing with this kind of flare-ups?
I think firstly, there's a big problem here, because we only hear about the incidents of racism, but we don't hear about the many incidents between black and white, where white people assisted black people, or white people have been greatly paying for studies sometimes, adopting children, rescuing somebody. But whenever there's an incident of racism, the media, you people concentrate on that one. South Africa has come very far. There are still incidents of racism everywhere in the world, but that is not us. We have made great strides as a nation. We took a decision. The whole world is looking to us as an example of how to overcome racism and hatred. The majority of people decided we're going to hold hands together and we're going to build. And for 30 years we've been building. We've not finished the house of reconciliation. We've not finished the socially cohesive house, but we're getting there. There are racists, and I'm not going to apologize for them. There are some racists. There are some people, their inability to move forward, but they are in the teeny, whiny, small minority.
But those must be condemned. We must
on the strongest terms. They must not only be condemned, they must be sent to jail. They must face the full wrath of the law. That's not what I'm not absolving them. I am just saying that we need to concentrate also on the good. There's so many good things happening between black and white in this country. We should not be judged by the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bad racists. Yes, they are there, and I just believe that the law is still a bit lenient on them. I believe that one of the greatest crimes in this country is racism, and we should deal with them more harshly. And I'll ask the courts to deal decisively like a bulldog deals with a bone. But let's talk about the good. South Africa is the greatest socially cohesive nation, judging by where we're coming from. Where we're coming from, we tend to forget that. And that's why today we are reconciling. We are taking stock. We are seeing what more can we do to make us a socially cohesive country.
As the Minister, what kind of sanction, the maximum penalty that should be given to people who have been found to have been acting in a racist manner?
Life. Give them life. We don't need the racists here. We are moving. If you are racist, you are showing tendencies of wanting to take us back. Give them direct imprisonment on a more serious note. Give them direct imprisonment. Don't give them fines, because some racists have money. They'll just continue paying the fines. But you know what I'm saying? Give him direct imprisonment, and if he continues when he gets that, then you give him life.
Should I expect you to bring a bill to Parliament to put your words to action?
I'm an action man. I don't just talk. You know I'm an action man. So now you've even given me an idea. Thank you very much for that great idea. how to take it further. And that's what makes us beautiful. You know, you don't understand our country. Our country has come so far. This is a miracle nation. And we tend to forget that since Mandela is no longer here. Mandela is a hero. There's some that says Mandela is a sellout. Which sellout stays 27 years in jail? Show me one sellout. People that wouldn't even stay 7 days in jail today want to call Mandela a sellout. Mandela was a visionary by excellence. Mandela knew that we don't have a future unless it is a shared future. Mandela is a hero. And my job as the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture is to make sure that the future generations, I drown out the voice of those ones that says he's a sellout, because Mandela is a true hero, son of the soil, a man that sacrificed everything for me and you to be standing here today and talking about what a socially cohesive nation we are.
Yeah, brilliant. So we'll just go quickly into a review. I found a really interesting article on Daily Maverick regarding this whole issue on the Reconciliation Day that actually speaks about how President Ramaphosa actually announced that a national dialogue would be held in South Africa in 2025. And, you know, this would actually be really interesting because by 2025, South Africa would actually be hosting the G20 leadership. And so the world will be looking to South Africa. So this would be a really intense time, but also a great time to show South Africa the richness of its diversity and probably teach many of the Western countries on how to deal with issues like racism. But I know many South Africans actually are not really in line with that. But anyway, President Ramaphosa envisions that the national dialogue should be a process that should allow people to define the path that South Africa should move towards as a nation. And his vision for a national dialogue actually includes an extensive public consultation process that is going to be led by by a steering committee made up of leaders from government, labor, business, and communities. All right. According to President Ramaphosa, he says that he wants to see the people of South Africa united in everything that they do and putting their views together forward. And he actually said that through the different actions that, you know, the leadership in South Africa wants to reignite a collective vision and shared passion, just like as we saw in the Rainbowism of 1994, to create a South Africa that works for all of its people, all right? So that's what the whole idea about the national dialogue is. But many people are really not having this because, you know, the ANC being in power for the last 30 years is actually kind of like, I even saw a video by Prince Mashele. I think I'm making a set of videos on that where he spoke about how the ANC's leadership and the ANC's rule sort of like has shown that black people aren't meant for, you know, to lead. That was his term. Really, really crazy. I'll be making a set of videos on that and we'll just try to really understand Prince Mashele's perspective on these issues. But anyway, he says that President Ramaphosa actually speaking, he says that we will want the national dialogue to strengthen and consolidate the process of social compacting, where we come together as different sectors and communities to find common solutions, like we have always found in the past. So this is actually one of the areas where President Ramaphosa actually thinks that 2025, and I think this is actually in line with the fact that South Africa will be leading the G20 body by next year. And, you know, I think it's really important that President Ramaphosa, South Africa, shows the world the possibility of what can be possible when diverse cultures, you know, meeting together can actually live in harmony and what they can really achieve. And I think this is why McKenzie happens to be in the center of that whole edifice. And I think also it's actually a representative of what a possible leader of a kind of nation like South Africa should represent, because South Africa is a really, in a way, strange nation that actually has these multiple peoples together. It's really difficult to speak of a cohesive one people group, so to speak, like as we speak of in Nigeria, in Africa, like we say the tribes in Nigeria, the tribes in Kenya and all that. These are all African peoples but different. But South Africa now has multiple African peoples, but even others from what would be called other countries or other nations, all sharing that one common identity as South African. And so that's why I think it makes it really a much more really interesting case of multiculturalism and diversity in South Africa, and the power of what such a nation can achieve from the continent of Africa. And so this is the reason why I think Gaten McKenzie appears to be at the centerpiece of this whole issue with national dialogue, reconciliation, cohesion, social cohesion, and unity. And as many people have actually been saying, that he might be a potential president for South Africa to really showcase that unity mantra for that is really necessary for South Africa. South Africa is already so divided. It really doesn't need that kind of politics of division, so to speak. I know that there are inherent economic inequalities that advocate. I always forget his name, but he spoke at the London School of Economics. He's actually one of the lawyers that actually represented South Africa in the ICJ case against Israel. He spoke about how, despite the fact that South Africa has gone past apartheid, what is actually going on, the kind of violence going on in South Africa right now, is what he calls a structural violence, because it's the structure that itself that actually came from the pre to the post-independent era of South Africa that's actually impacting the kind of economic violence against a certain marginalized group, which in this case would be the black majority, and perpetuating conditions for poverty in South Africa. So it's this kind of issues that actually need to be addressed, so to speak. But at the same time, there's a need for unity, there's a need for social cohesion, there's a need for forgiveness and all that for the country to move forward. As painful as those really are, I usually have clashes with on the comments, as I see many of you commenting on how South Africa can move past these historical wounds. At the end of the day, forgiveness is still the key. Forgiveness is still the mantra. History is painful. I'm naturally also Igbo. All right, many Igbos in Nigeria, for example, when they speak about the sort of like the pains they went through during the War of Biafra. I don't know how many of you know about the War of Biafra in 1967 and 1970. A really painful part of Nigeria's history, so to speak. But Nigeria has moved on and is really trying to really get behind these issues. But there are issues that still keep cropping up, and that's the character of nationhood. That's the character of society. That society must always find a way to move on and build upon it and try to grow in a world that actually has a painful history behind it. And so that's where South Africa also finds itself. There has to be a way forward, all right? And it speaks to the need for forgiveness. It speaks to the need to really address these really bitter issues with an honest mind, and with a mind that actually speaks that seeks to really have one heart and one spirit and one love for the nation of South Africa, what we call patriotism. And these are kind of like the things I see in Gaten McKenzie, and that's why most times I just like to listen to him and really speak, analyze his speeches and all. But I don't know, what do you guys think about this whole issue with a national dialogue, the possible impact of a national dialogue? Could it be healthy for South Africa with the height of a 33.3% unemployment rate, with as much as 82 murders a day? Is a national dialogue what South Africa needs, or does South Africa need something much more? Share your thoughts in the comments.